Okay, you guys ready?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so first of all, super excited to have this conversation. I love that. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm with four other dudes that are really epic guys doing great things in the world, passionate guys, guys that care about being good guys. And we wanted to kind of frame this conversation with the backdrop of how can we win in 2026? And so I really want to hear from you guys. What does that mean to you? What do you think about that? How would you define winning? What do you think the average guy out there listening to this podcast needs to hear if he wants to win more in 2026? So before we get into all those great ideas, let's just take a second to introduce ourselves. Ryan, you go first. I'll go last.
Ryan James Miller, 14 years coaching executive leaders, entrepreneurs, helping a lot of them drive revenue initially in their businesses is how I started. But what I found was every single one of them was destroying their faith with their family in the process. And so I started helping them to ensure that they were laying the foundation of faith and that they were paying attention to their wives and kids at home. Because if you gain the whole world and lose your soul, seems like a pretty frivolous act.
Well said. Scott.
I'm Scott Duffy, and I am an AI speaker and strategist, and we help companies systematize transformation so that they can transform faster and not get left behind in this age of AI.
Nice, dude. Awesome.
Because if I get one man, that equals one marriage, one family, one generational line completely transformed. So we've just been going to war for it for the last decade or so, and it's been incredible.
My name is Scott Empringham, and just like Ryan was saying, actually, I think everybody said in some senses, I was the guy that had it all. Business was great, family was great, clients were great, lost it all as I got farther and farther away from things that mattered most. I was fortunate enough to find you in the process and find Christ and rebuilt the man, rebuilt the business. It was as simple and as hard as that. For me, starting with that, rebuilt my business, rebuilt my marriage. And now I have the privilege of speaking all over the world about AI-powered marketing. And I work with thousands of businesses all over the world. And a part of it is AI, but part of it is really the process of rebuilding me as a person and sharing that. And that's made a big difference in my life and hopefully other people's lives as well.
Nice, dude. Okay, so I'm Quentin Hafner. I have been a licensed therapist for almost 20 years. I don't practice therapy anymore because it doesn't work. I'll tell you throughout this conversation what I do. I mostly coach high performers on how to win at the intersection of their personal, professional, and relational lives. I'm the founder of Black Belt Husband, which is mostly an online program for helping men turn their marriages around. And then I also have a men's community called Higher Value Men, which we teach and coach, train men on how to become just really great men. I'm a believer. I think we're all believers, right? Are we all feeling that energy? Yeah. So we're all believers here.
If not, that's where the altar call starts.
So this is a great segue. So I did a live in-person event in May of this year in Laguna Beach, and there was like 30 dudes there. Ryan was one of my guest speakers, and within 5 minutes of our event unfolding, this one guy was super vulnerable. He just opens up, that his life's a mess and his wife, he was at the event and he didn't want his wife to know that he was there. He was like hiding it from her. I'm like, dude, you should tell her. She'll be happy that you're here.
Yeah.
We're talking about how to be a great guy. Mr. Miller just jumps in. He's like, dude, we need to pray for this guy. So we're 5 minutes in. I had this whole agenda set. Ryan's like, screw the agenda. We're laying hands on this guy and we're going for it. So that says something about Ryan. So I want to kick it back to you because you were talking about young men. You were talking about how do we reach young men? Go for it.
Yeah, I'm around a lot of young guys these days. I have daughters that are 16 yesterday, and my oldest turns 18 in a couple of months. And I'm around these young boys all the time, and they just seem so lost. They seem so confused. And as a dad, like as a parent, it's really difficult because I feel like we were brought up to believe that there were certain things that a man either might provide or a way that he might act, or little things like holding a door open or pulling back a chair, things like that when a woman was going to sit down. But, a lot of men or young men get vilified for that stuff today, and they're confused about what their role is supposed to be as a man. And so what do I say to them? How do I address them? And how can we all help?
Yeah. Ryan, I think about you have two, how old are your daughters?
2016.
So they're in like, you're seeing that, right?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
seeing them dating, and what's that like for you as a dad?
Yeah, high school boys are pussies. They are just so weak-minded. They're so immature. It's just incredible. But what I've seen, I think more than anything, it's really easy. And I hear you saying this already, Scott. Like, it's really easy to blame these kids when in reality, it's the generation that raised them or didn't raise them. I mean, we live in Orange County, California. There's a lot of wealth. There is so much absentee parenting. And so I think that's one of the things that I see first is that these kids just aren't being paid attention to. You know, I mean, mom and dad are competing for their attention, so they're buying them everything that they want. They're not really enforcing any discipline. So I think a lot of times it's just seeing them and paying attention to them and spending time with them. Because look I mean, we've talked about this before, like the Andrew Tate disaster was really the result of somebody that was just speaking to their generation. And now that he's kind of quieted down a little bit and guys like Nick Fuentes are trashing into that space, these kids just want to be spoken to and heard. And I don't think that people have paid attention to them for so long. And we can't even figure out half the shit that we're dealing with in this world. How can these kids do that? And so I just think a lot of times it's really just about presence.
Yeah. I just want to add on to that a little bit too, because I don't work with young men in particular, but I just have a sneaking suspicion, I guess, because this is probably coming from maybe some of the middle-aged guys that I work with. I think for the last 30 years, guys haven't really had a voice. And what it means to be a man has been incredibly confusing. Things like, toxic masculinity, the Me Too movement, the patriarchy, all these things have kind of conditioned guys to be very confused about what is the right path. Should I be this way? Should I be that way? And the reason those influencers are garnishing their attention is because they're giving them a voice. And it's kind of like the voice for the voiceless kind of feeling.
Yep.
And so some of it's destructive. Maybe some of it's healthy. Some of it's good. I think there's like a rebound effect that's happening. But the guys that I work with, they all say the same thing to me. They're like, I don't know. Like, how do I be? There's a lot of confusion. I guess we're going to go down this rabbit trail. I wasn't thinking go down here, but
I also think that that's, similar to the effect that Charlie Kirk had and why he was so powerful is I think he gave people a voice to ask a question and provided a different perspective that maybe a lot of people were looking for.
When I think that, we see it in the Garden of Eden. I think that there is a reality that men didn't lose their voice. They abdicated their role. That's a big difference. There's a big difference between me going like, you took this away from me.
Sure. Yeah.
No, that was God given. You can't lose it. You have to give it up. And when Eve ate from the tree, nothing changed. Zero changed because it was not her responsibility to care for the garden. It was when the man abdicated his role and ate from the fruit, not just of the tree, but the wife that handed it to him, his God-given partner. He didn't know how to steward her. To me, that looks like basic codependency in some ways.
Yeah. Like,
I'm going to make you feel good about your bad mistakes so that I don't feel bad about it. And then we can if you're happy, I'm happy, all this stuff. But I'm like, there's an abdication of the role of men. And I do believe that there is confusion, but I don't believe they don't know. I feel like every time I'm in the room with a man, it's not that he doesn't know. It's that he doesn't really want to own it because he's so scared of the response he's going to get. And so it's like, I feel like it's one of my favorite things to hear when a man goes, I don't know. Because I'm like, oh, that's the most bullshit thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm like, it's in here. You know what to do. You just don't want to do it. That's okay. But we can't let you be a victim to the fact that you abdicated your role and now you're blaming somebody else or a culture or a leader or your pastor. I just not going to buy that with you because in here, we're just going to help find that. Let's help find that again, square you up and stabilize you to the thing that you were created for.
For sure.
But
you make a really great point because I totally agree with what you're saying. It's in the DNA. It's hardwired. Yeah. Okay. It's in our soul. But if we haven't been given the roadmap of how to access that by our fathers or our grandfathers or our coaches or our mentors, then it's like we need someone to show us the way. We need someone to kind of go before us and say, hey, this is how you do it. Because And I think that's a big thing of what's missing in culture is that healthy role modeling of what does it mean to be a healthy masculine man. This is why I'm very outspoken about therapy as a profession, is because the ratio of therapy, and this is really nationally too, it's 4-to-1 women to men, right? So if somebody is struggling with something and they go to therapy, they're going to sit in front of chances are they're going to sit in front of a female therapist. And that female is going to maybe do their best to try to tell that person what health looks like to be a man. The game is totally rigged at that point. It's not going to work because she can't be that role modeling for him. And so then where do guys go to find that? Where do they go? And they're not going to get it from their pastor either, because most pastors are total fucking pussies. Thank you for saying that. Okay. They've been totally feminized too, because the church has lost its footing in that regard also. So, Scott, where do guys get that? Where do guys get the role modeling? How do guys figure out how to be that guy?
Well, I was thinking about my dad was my hero. He was my role model. And at the same time, there's a bunch of things that I really wanted to model from my dad that I absolutely loved about my dad. He was super successful, grew up in Emerald Bay, financially abundant. And on the weekends, we would go to Boat Canyon Liquor and he'd get his porno mags, he'd get his vodka, and he'd get a carton of cigarettes. And I thought that was the coolest fucking thing in the world. But I was also 13, 14, and I thought that was awesome. Gamble on the weekends. I thought that was really cool. He did a lot of other things that as I grew up and I was 16, 17, 18, 19, I saw, and I thought they were the coolest things in the world. And then over a period of time, you see the outcome, the alcoholism. Then he got sober. So I saw that whole thing going over the falls. I saw him and my mom starting to come apart. I saw my mom's mental, sort of emotional well-being deteriorate right in front of my eyes. It was awful. It was the worst thing in the world. But I saw how cool it was until it wasn't cool. And then I had to figure it out. Then every young man gets to the point where all of a sudden they're in control of the wheel. Okay, fine. You think they did it wrong? It's your shot now. And then I steered it right into a cliff, in certain ways. In certain ways, I did really well. But then I had to kind of navigate it for myself. So I saw it as for me right now, I'm super family focused. I'm hyper focused on how am I showing up for my son? How am I showing up for my daughter? And maybe more importantly, how am I showing up for my wife? Because my daughter's watching that and my son's watching that. And my son, this morning, I went into his room. We did some push-ups, and simple things like that, I think have a profound effect. I'm trying to show him that exercise is important. Treating mom is important, important. So I guess that's my role models. I'm still figuring out my new role model. Now Christ is offering a brand new thing. And I just got baptized 5 years ago. I still feel very new, very blessed to be a part of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a really difficult tension too, in again, with the distortion of masculinity. And really there is this idea of, the way that our grandparents and even maybe our parents, my dad's generation was raised, maybe not everything that was said or done was appropriate, right? It was kind of just the way things were. And so there is this like toughness that's been imaged that we do need to be careful about over pursuing. On the other side, my dad was also raised in a generation and raised me to really not be fearful, to not show emotion. Like my dad was a cop early on in my life. My dad is a badass, strong guy. I never saw my dad cry. And so then the other side is, I've seen some distortion in the strength side of masculinity, which we know, like we've talked about this. I'm a guy's guy. I want to lift heavy in the gym. I want to get out and get dirty and work on things. But at the same time, I also need to understand how to address and tap into the emotion side of me when I start to fear, when I start to hurt. And that's been distorted. So I think that, the reason why I believe that so many young kids are gravitating towards the strength is because that feels so good, right? And so it is the Tate is, even like the good examples of Rogan and Cam Hanes and Goggins, it's really good in so many aspects. But when I think that that's all it is, then I don't know how to address when I start to feel afraid, when I'm sad, when I'm hurt. And so what do? What is the guy like Wild at Heart? John Eldridge talks about this all the time. My typical response as a male when I start to feel fear is not flight, it's fight. And so then I get angry and I lash out. against people that are around me. I start to sin in ways that I normally would not because it's just an overabundant response. And so, again, I think that there's this tension that we're trying to figure out how to live within. And those role models, as you kind of said, like they don't exist. I don't think they exist in the public sphere very well. I think in a lot of pockets, like around this, conversation right now, each one of us is doing that in little small pockets. But what's dictating the national voice right now is not that.
I think too, I think that the call to like tribally, there was a call not to strength, but to suffering. And if you learned how to suffer well, you get emotion and strength. And I think all like really tribal rites of passages were built around embracing suffering, because in embracing suffering, you can't deny the emotional response, but you also have to learn to be strong. And so like, whether that's, you can still look some of this stuff up on YouTube, but like, whether it's the bullet ants in South America, where they're putting on these gloves, not just once, but 20 times over their lifetime, and they have to wear them for 10 minutes. And each one of those stings feels like you're being shot with a gun, and it lasts 24 hours, but the whole tribe prepares. There's like this whole tribal preparation, and they're looking into the strength of these men because they learned how to suffer well. Same thing with, we can go back through a ton of different ones that I've read up and studied. It all has to tie to this idea of real masculinity begins when I teach my boys how to suffer well. And I feel like that is the model of Christ. Like the thing a man loses when he makes Jesus his model, as the model of masculinity, the very first thing to go is it's not fair. Because the unfair thing in all of human history is God wrapped in flesh hanging from a tree. And if that's my model for masculinity, at some point you have to stop bitching and you have to learn how to embrace suffering, because in embracing suffering, you'll get all the strength we're talking about. But I can't detach from my emotion anymore because this makes me feel something that I have to wrestle with. And so I think that's the part we're trying to avoid. Like, I think most of culture, to your point, is avoiding. They're not avoiding masculinity. They're avoiding suffering. And men are supposed to be the models of suffering well and learning from that suffering and leveraging it into my purpose and my greatness.
I have a very dear friend, and he lost his son in high school. And this friend of mine is incredibly successful in every area of his life you look at. He just kills it. And he worked so hard, family dinners, books he did with his kids, things like that. And I asked him afterwards, I said, if there was one thing you might have done differently, what would that be? And he said, I would have let them see when it was hard. So I think he was trying so hard to put on a brave face, and there's no blame that's going there. But I think it's a really good lesson for all of us to allow our kids to see us when we're having a hard time and suffer, and let them learn how we get through that or we don't get through that. I think it's really important. And I think that in today's culture with social media and all these other tools where they're getting information and guidance, you don't see that. Everything looks perfect.
It's all curated.
It's all curated.
So I wrote a book called Wounds, How Hurt, Heartache, and Tragedy Become the Keys to Unlocking Greatness. And one of the things as I was writing is I started to recognize for myself that, when you're young and you fall down, like riding my dirt bike for the first time, I fall down. What does your dad say?
Walk it up.
Quit crying, dust yourself off, get back on and go again. And so there is this idea to that point, and to what both of you guys are saying, it's like, let me just get past it. It's in the past. Let me ignore it. Let's not walk through this, understand why it happened, and not just because the world is evil or because I screwed up, but because there's actual purpose in what just happened, right? To learn, to grow. Don't turn that way. Don't lean like that. Don't, whatever. And so I think, again, I do agree that there is this lost art of, I think it too is overemphasized. Again, as much as I have some respect for Goggins in certain areas, I think we can overdo this idea of like torturing myself in order to, be awesome. But yes, again,
a lot more good is going to come from those restraints and that suffering. And there is the opposite, which is what we've seen.
Yes.
It's like we've seen way more damage come from, well, we don't need to push ourselves that far. We don't need to be that holy. We don't need to be that good or that strong.
Well, and we're selective in how we do that because probably, for those that are passionate about fitness, you're going to go suffer in the gym, right? You'll get into the deep, dark place. In business, we've all learned that, man, you just go through wicked seasons and you know what? I just have to grin and bear it. But when it comes to suffering or even just sacrificing for my wife, forget it. I mean, that's way too hard. I don't need to deal with that.
Give me that CrossFit workout. I'm good.
I talk to men all the time, like, man, you go to the gym for 4 hours and you can't have a 40-minute conversation with your wife. How strong are you really?
I use in one of the talks I do one of the like craziest juxtapositions of this idea, and this is a true story. So I was in the crowd in Las Vegas when the mass shooting happened back in 2017. One of my friends was killed that night, and early on in the about second wave of fire, I jumped on top of my wife in the like. I had no idea was fire coming? Was she going to get hit? And it was like, I have to protect her. So here is one of the most valiant, and this isn't to brag because I'm going to juxtapose this in the right way. Here's one of the most valiant efforts a man can make. Yeah. In truly, like we would all say we would do that. There was a split second when I thought about what I was doing, but I did it. I will not get up off the damn couch to wash the dishes after my wife cleans because that's going too far. I mean, isn't that crazy to think about? And I think we all have those don't go. But isn't that crazy, right? Like we have this like selective idea of what it means to serve, to sacrifice, to invest. And we just have these places that we just won't go. And because we won't go to those places, we will never truly become who God has created us to be.
Okay, let me say this too, though, because I love this conversation. I love where it's going because it reminds me of kind of an idea that sometimes I think that we have these expectations of guys that are kind of not realistic. And what I mean by that is I see this a lot, like just in the world that I am in, that there's a reluctance to give guys permission just to be fucking guys. It's like we're always trying to change them. We're always trying to say that either you're not soft enough, you're not empathetic enough, you're not strong enough, you're not enough of something. Yeah. I'm as guilty as anybody of doing that because this is the world that I live in. This is my profession is basically to tell guys that they're not doing a good job.
So way to do it. Way to go.
So, but it's like, how can we live in that tension where on one hand, it's true that we all want to develop and grow and become the best version of ourselves. But at the same time, it's like, can you just give me a fucking break and just let me be a fucking guy? Seriously. Like, do you guys feel that when I say that? Sometimes I feel that like there's an acceptance of like, and I think that a lot of this has to do with like cultural stuff. Like I'll give you an example. So like my stepdad growing up, he used to take me and my brother to the park when we were really young, 7, 8, 9, Sunday morning, 6:30, sun's barely coming up, and he used to force us to do wind sprints up the hill. And he was a motherfucker. And we would be crying and, begging him to not do it this Sunday. If we could get out of it in any way, we would pretend to be sick. We would hide. We would do anything, right? And I hated him for so many years for doing that. And then I learned about suffering. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy gave me the best life lesson as a little kid that I didn't understand how powerful it was until I was probably in my 30s. And I spent all those years thinking that he was wrong, condemning him and thinking that it was abusive and all. I had all this narrative going on in my mind,
You did just call him an MFer.
Well, for different reasons.
Oh.
He was a violent alcoholic. He used to kick the shit out of us. That side, we could have done that part. But it's like, it's kind of just makes me think of that thought of like, man, I and of course I wasn't mature enough to see it at the time, but I look back and I think, gosh, I wish I could have just, and now I'm just so grateful for the things that he did. I'm so grateful for the push that he gave us because it's formed me into who I am. It's made me resilient in so many ways that translate to my life today that I wouldn't be that without him. Does that speak to you guys a little bit?
It does. It actually reminds me of a story because it's also about using kind of a strategy of connecting with your child or with that man, that young man in a way that's going to resonate with them. And I have this story where years ago I was going through divorce and I have 2 daughters and they were both under 10 years old. And I was doing everything I possibly could to be the best guy I could through that process for my kids, right? To make it as easy as I could for my kids. And I remember it was tough. If any of you guys have gone through divorce, it's tough on both sides, all that kind of stuff. But I was really giving. And then maybe during the most difficult time, it was my birthday. And my daughter wrote me a card. And the card it was taped all the way around, and it was like this way and that way. And it said, open in private, don't let anybody else see this, things like that. So I thought it was going to be like a love letter because of how hard I worked. And I opened it up, and the card said, "You're a terrible dad." To this day, it's the most crushing thing in my entire life. And I'm like, first thing I said, and I think this is important, is thank you for using your voice. I think it's a really important lesson to teach our kids today, right? Thank you for using your voice. And I said, I don't understand. I do this for you and this, and I do this for you. And she said, but we never make slime together. And what I realized is we talk about love languages, like I've heard, right? And I've heard like, what is their physical touch and words of affirmation and spending time together and things like this. And I was doing everything except for the thing that was the most important to her. So nothing was connecting. She didn't feel loved in that way. So what do? So we went to Target. We bought a gallon of glue, and we made we cleared out the cabinet. We made a slime cabinet. 1 month later was Father's Day, and I got another card. And it's like world's greatest dad. So today it's on my wall, but that's how easy it is and how important it is for us to get out of our heads and really find out what drives, like how they connect to us.
Well, I think you bring up a great point as well, which is abuse aside, like we're talking like just normal, like the normal circumstances of a man in the house, from a wife, as a husband, as a father. Like a man needs to really know how to take the hit. Like, so Dad, we hate you for doing this. We hate you for this. And it's like, you can take the hit without the reaction.
Without collapsing emotionally.
That's right. And so like, so often, and tying it back to even what you're saying, is like, there's this whole piece of like really knowing what we have to do in seasons and where we are and what we're going through. Cause so often we're like trying to do the heroic thing, and we're like trying to like be the heroes instead of just being the guy who shows up. And so often like men are taught in all the, from movies and on, it's like, be the hero. It's like, do the heroic thing, throw your body on your wife, make it like no pain at all. And I remember when I was going through therapy way early, when my marriage first was like, my wife was like, you're basically an asshole. And so when we were first going, there was like my counselor at the time, super great counselor. He was epic. He literally was like, I'm telling him the story, and look how much I'm doing. And oh man, it's so hard. And I'm crying, And I'm like, I want to stop you right there. Do you know the difference between being vulnerable and telling on yourself? And I was like, no, sir, I don't. Clearly.
I get the feeling you're about to educate me.
Feeling that I'm about to be really humbled, and I'll just take this one in the gut. And it's like, he's like, well, when you're telling on yourself, you control the narrative. So you're telling yourself how great you are, and now you're telling me, even though you're exposing yourself, you're exposing the parts that still make you look good. When you're being truly vulnerable, you're giving me the entire story and letting me come to my own decision. And when I'm like, so in that space, I'm like, my wife, I'm doing all these heroic things and all this stuff, and I'm doing it. And she's like, I just want you to take out the fucking trash. Like, I don't need a trip to Paris. I don't need that new thing. I don't want that. My dad never took out the trash. Will you just take out the trash? And it was like this massive wake up call of like, I'm paying a price that's not even being asked of me, and wondering why I'm being so resentful of, like, reactionary and resentful, when really the simplest thing is usually the right thing. And then I can take those hits along the way of going, no, I'm going to be faithful to being the man of this house. And then I'll take the hits that come along by just doing the simple things that actually build the environment that I'm looking for. And I think that's like, to me, I'm like, that is one of the clearest definitions of masculinity, is just taking responsibility. Like taking responsibility, like my job, I'm going to take out the trash. I'm going to show you. I don't give two shits how tired you are. You come home from work. Your wife's also tired. We're going to figure out how to do this. And we're going to figure out how to do it well and not put like guilt and shame on us, but we're going to show up to the lives we were actually given. Like not the lives we wish we had, or the life somebody else on social media says we're supposed to have, but like, this is my life. This is what I was given.
And I can tell you, because I've only known you for a little bit, but I can tell you exactly why you do that, because you have an identity that this is very important to me. This is part of your kind of missional pursuit in the world, to be a certain person in relationship to your wife. So your identity as being a husband has this spiritual calling attached to it that I would say 90% of most guys never really connect to that.
Absolutely.
Even Christian guys haven't connected this idea of like, it's not that I'm supposed to take the hits. I get to take the hits.
That's it.
What a privilege. What a privilege that I get to be the fall guy. What a privilege that I get to go out and get my ass kicked by the world and be the financial provider. And I think all of us are successful in that domain because we've all attached our identity to this incredible privilege. And I don't think most guys, when I think about the guys that I know right now in my life that I know their marriages are struggling, they have not connected that dot in their own minds about how they see themselves and why they do what they do. They still think that being married is somehow about making them happy, that there's a primary benefit that they, maybe I'm going to do these things because it's going to I'm going to get something. And it's like, no. We do these things because we feel called to do these things because it's part of our identity. Does that speak to you, Scott?
Yeah. Well, I keep thinking about, I keep thinking about actually with my dad. So when he got sober, nothing he did would show up on an Instagram reel or be interesting. He got up in the morning and he went to an AA meeting, the drive in. Every day at 5:30, he'd come home. To me, that was a unique thing that he would actually be home at the end of the day, because there were days when he would be missing for a long time. But when he got sober, the things that he did actually, it was the absence of anything really interesting. And it was the consistency of the boring things. Getting up, going to an AA meeting every day, being home at 5:30, being home on the weekends. To me, it wasn't extraordinary. You never post that on Instagram. It just wouldn't be interesting. But to me, that was the biggest life lesson. As I got older, I realized there was 2 years where you said taking the hit. My mom was angry. She was hurt and angry and relentlessly just beating him up, not physically, but verbally. But he took it and he did what he had to do to take the hits, go into his meetings, talk about whatever he did. And as a result, it was a great example to me, especially later on. It wasn't a David Goggins moment. It wasn't a CrossFit moment. It wasn't anything like that, but it was this quiet strength that he had to rebuild his life. And I thought, to me, and then I ended up living that.
What a great example.
Having my own opportunity to do that. But to me, that was a big example of the quiet hits that he took day in and day out for years to rebuild his life.
I have a question. How do we take the hit? Like, how do we take the hit and not go either in one direction where we react and we get upset, we get angry, we lash out, or on the other hand, we take the hit and it's just we're depressed? Like, to me, it feels like it can go one of two different directions. Like, how do we do it?
Okay.
I feel like you guys have a better, I'm wondering if it's having an internal perspective.
Yeah. So that's where you've touched on identity. Jake, you touched on identity earlier. I think there's a third way. And I think this is what we're really missing is we aren't the hero. We aren't meant to take the hit. And I'm not trying to over spiritualize this, but Jesus took that, right? Jesus tells Paul, he says that my power is made perfect in your weakness. And so we have created this identity where we are to save our wife. We have this identity where we are to be the ultimate provider and protect. And we are. I say all the time, we talk about provider and protector, right? I love those words when it comes to manhood and masculinity. But we are not that guy. We bear so much weight for the responsibility of the world. And it's not to abdicate, because I do think that we are abdicating role and responsibility, but we miss the fact that our identity is not husband, it's not father, it's not business leader, it is follower of Christ. And because most of Christianity, even, and especially Western Christianity, Southern California Christianity, Orange County Christianity, does not know Jesus, they don't understand what their identity really is.
Yeah, and I think at Jesus' baptism, the Father speaks those three things over him: that you are chosen, you're loved, you're enough. Period. End of story. Yeah. And we know that it's before any miracles and any messages and all the stuff. But I'm like, when we have that right, we aren't moved by culture. We're not moved by circumstance. We're not moved by situations or the things people say about us. I think it was Nouwen that said the false identity is three things. False identity is what you do, what you have and what others think of you.
Yep.
And so when your false identity, if you're living from what you do, what you have, or what others think of you, you can't live from I'm chosen, I'm loved, I'm enough. Now that transition is hard. That's the work. To me, that's the bridge that I think a lot of us in the spaces we're in are trying to help men gap, because you're 100% right. The model, the work has been done. My job is to daily pick up that my cross, not his cross. That's the difference. Like, it doesn't say in scripture, daily pick up Jesus's cross. It's like, no, pick up yours, because yours looks different than mine. Yours looks different than mine.
Mine's heavy enough.
Yeah, mine's fine. And then the thing is, I think on top of that, we think it's more righteous if I pick up yours and yours and yours and yours and my wife's and my kids and my buddies and
and there is a tough tension. I think that's the thing, is the high performing guy. We want to strive. I never want to quit. I will work as hard as I can until the day I die to serve wherever God calls me to. But I fight this. This is my greatest wrestle. It causes me stress and anxiety, and it has for the 19 years I've been a Christian, is I don't know how to always reconcile my desire to grow and get better, when also understanding that my worth is eternally secure in what Jesus already did for me. And I think that needs to be an honest conversation that we're regularly having, which is strive, work hard, serve your wife better, take out the frickin' trash, be there for our kids, do the things. I can't look my kid in the face and say to them, I'm going to fulfill your every need, because I don't want to set them up. This is the thing that I really struggle with. So somebody asked me this recently. So my oldest daughter's 23. She's been dating this kid, young man now, for 7 years, and they've chosen to not have sex before marriage, which as a father, I love. Also, as a believer and as somebody that was not a Christian growing up, I understand the scars that creates in our marriage later on. I'm like, amazing. But it was never about right and wrong. Because if it's wrong to have sex before marriage, break that rule all day long. You're going to get an STD. You're going to get pregnant. Those are all true. But what we were trying to communicate to her was your worth and your value is far greater than what this world has to offer you in sleeping with somebody before you get married. And so if I'm going to preach that to my kid, I've got to be able to live that myself. And I think that's what's getting missed. And so then our kids are looking at us and they're like, well, Dad, you're hustling your ass off all the time. I guess I have to too. And Dad, when you don't win, you're sad. And so when I don't get a good grade, I'm sad. And you're like, no. It's okay. You tried your hardest. And you're like, but Dad, you tried your hardest and you're pissed off all the time. And then you just go work harder. And then you're not around more because you didn't get what you wanted. And so you got to go double down to try and go get it later. Dad, that's what I'm going to do too.
Okay, but here's the litmus test.
Go.
The litmus test is, what is the underlying motivation that compels us to do these things?
I want to be liked. I want to feel good about myself.
Yeah.
I don't want people to see that I suck.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a coach. The last thing I want to do is fail in front of the people I'm trying to take money from.
Yeah.
It's image. It's all image.
Yeah. I think sometimes you're going to wrestle with that, but as a person, I know you personally, it's not all image. Like, you do those things because you're compelled by love.
I do the things like, this is vulnerability 101 for me. I do those things because I feel called. I can't do anything anymore that I don't deeply feel called to do, but I would be a liar if the failure was not denting my ego. Even though I know God's calling me to it, still when I haven't built the 7-figure business, the 8-figure whatever, I'm like, man, maybe I kind of suck. I just start to care about not even what other people think of me, but what I think of myself.
This has just been my experience, because I feel like, I've had to wrestle with my own insecurity for so long, feeling like I'm just not enough. Like, I'm not anywhere near over it. I'm still like, just this last week, I was like, oh, there it is again. Damn it. Like, you're like, you're in the middle of a conversation. You're like, oh shit, there it is again. And I'm seeing it when I'm around, hanging out with Troy last night. I'm like, I can just feel that drag into it. And the only thing I've been able to offer it, the only thing that works for me is just grief. Like, it's just grief. Like, oh, there's a part of me that's still, because that's not a grown ass thought. That's not a grown ass man's thought. That's a little kid who really didn't get seen. And the only person who can see him now is me. Like, I'd have to take 6 hours and maybe a handful of days to give you the context you would need to see the same boy that just shows his face when I'm sitting with a man who makes 9 figures and I'm just going to try to figure out how to pay my bills.
Okay, there's a fine line to that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Also, I don't think it's a bad thing to feel bad that we're not winning. I don't think it's a bad thing to feel bad if you lost.
Right.
I think that's an important thing for people like us, especially if you know that you're capable of something. It's kind of like I had a client tell me that this is a perfect example. Okay, so this client I'm working with, he's trying to get into shape, and he was like, he's kind of chubby or whatever. He's like, oh, I think I should just need to be more loving and accepting of my body. I was like, no. I think you need to tell yourself that you're not living up to the standard that you have for yourself. And when you don't live up to that standard, you feel bad about that. And you should feel bad about that because that feeling should propel you to a higher standard. And I say it's a fine line because there's a slippery slope there, because we can cross into the dark side and we could be relentless and kick the shit out of ourselves and feel like we're not enough and feel like we're failures. But there is something in our culture too that tells us these lies that we should just be kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
That we should just be nice to ourselves, that, Ryan, you're good enough as you are.
Thanks, man.
Right?
Me next.
It's like, yes, you are, and you're not at the same time.
Yeah, no, you're fat.
And that's why I say grief, because when I say grief, I go, wow, that it actually makes me sad that I'm not measuring up the thing that I actually was created for, because I can see the hurt, but I can see the call. And when I see both and I live in, and I choose to embrace it with grief and not guilt and shame, I can go, man, that does suck. You ended up here. Wow, it does. There are a few decisions that got you here. And you grieve it instead of the guilt and shame part, then I can release it. Because to me, I feel like grief is the gateway. Grief is really the gateway, it feels like, to real masculine emotion. Because most of us are just avoiding the grief. To your point, it's like we're just avoiding all that in the name of stronger, in the name of better, in the name of bigger, in the name of bolder. And we miss grieving that keeps us sensitive. I say it, I guess one of the ways that I talk about is like honesty destroys ego. Like, period.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to be honest about this, I am feeling insecure. Well, there has to be a response to that. Like, I can't just be like, well, and shut the fuck up. It's like, wow, which part of me is still feeling that grief, and you get better at those tools to go, wow, yeah, Jake, you weren't really seen in this area. Yeah, dad kind of fucked this up. Or like, hey, your mom did this. Or, hey, when you were this age, wow, there's some real stories there. I can see that. But we're going to really hey, I see you, and now we're gonna move forward. Like, we're gonna keep going, and we don't need to go far. We don't need to make $1 million next week, but we do need to put one foot in front of the other.
And maybe transition of conversation, I think, would be really helpful, because you brought up something that is why we're here. So you said that guy needed you to be honest with him. And I think that's another thing, again, as we're talking about, how do we grow? How do we get better as men? We isolate when we realize that we're not enough, that when we start to screw up, when we start to sin, whatever, we hide, right? We just isolate ourselves. So that guy is fortunate enough, your client in this moment, to have you be like, dude, no, you're not okay. Get off the couch, go do something about it. And so I would actually be interested to know, what has the experience been of other guys speaking into your lives? Because I think that's something that you talked about, vulnerability. How does that look?
Okay, let me say something, because I think about this a lot too, because I'm a truth teller, and I joke around a lot. I say I'm the last honest therapist, because most therapists are just fucking liars. They will lie to you to take your money.
That is
Can I clip that so I can give that to everybody?
That is just scary.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
But I can't say that because I'm not a therapist. So there you go. Congratulations.
It's okay. I'll speak for all the rest of the liars. So when I say a lot that I put a stake in the ground for honesty, and it's a hill that I will die on. But a lot of times when I say that to people, what they are assuming or what they're thinking is I'm going to say something really harsh to you. Honesty means that I'm going to be like, hey, Scott, you're fucking up. That's half the coin. The other half of the coin is like, Scott, you are a fucking amazing man. Has anyone told you that recently? Like, because I need to be honest with you about that, because I don't think you're hearing that enough. Like, so there's two sides to honesty. And I think when we talk about being honest, usually it comes in the frame of like, oh, you're gonna give it to them, right? It's like sometimes, but that's not always what people need. A lot of times people need the other side of honesty. And most guys don't get either side. Okay. And we need both sides of honesty. We need to be seen in a loving way. We also need to be seen in a confrontational way, because that's how we're going to improve.
But we need to step into the environment and give people permission to speak to us like that too. We need to be asking for it more, because I don't think that happens enough. Like I remember we had a long car ride back from Alabama to, I don't know, wherever
we drove from Nashville to Alabama.
Yeah, there you go. And back. And I think it was on the back that we just got really real about, well, and you were, willing to say to me, well, I think this is really good. This is really smart. That's not. Yeah, you're really good in this area, but this area you could definitely improve. Hey, or you'll call me once in a while or text me and be like, hey, I saw that. Like, you should really do it like this instead. So I think, and that's because we have that.
You're like, that motherfucker.
No,
stop
never
replying to his text.
I don't like to be told that I do anything wrong. I don't want to be told that my content looks like shit or that this message isn't resonating right. But if I don't have that relationship with you, then I have nobody being honest with me. And for the longest time, I protected myself on purpose by putting myself into rooms with guys that I was more successful than. So they had nothing to say to me. I tried to be the one that was the most in shape, the one that was the most successful, had the biggest toys, spent the most money. So that way nobody could hold a candle to saying anything to me. And I started learning how detrimental that was to myself and getting into environments and building friendships with people like you to say, dude, tell me like it is. I do want you to tell me when I'm doing a really good job, because I know that I can trust you. You're not bullshitting me just for the sake of making me feel good. But at the same time, I need you to be honest with me about the things that I suck at, whether it's something blatant or something very microscopic. And so I think having that trusted voice or community is so important. And it's something that most guys, even when they say, oh yeah, you can be honest with me, I'm like, you're a liar. You don't
really want to hear me.
No.
Yeah.
Leverage this against me, possibly.
I appreciate that so much about you. You're the guy that will call me and be like, dude, like, tell me the truth. Like, am I screwing this up? Should I do something different here? And I respect that so much about you, because it is such a rare quality. Where did you learn how to do that? Or where did you learn that was even important?
I think desperation was the mother of inspiration for me. I mean, after I probably wouldn't have done that at a certain time in my life, but when I lost everything got stripped away. The business, the family, the toys, everything was gone. So for me, I felt like I was starting to slip underwater. And there was a time when I was looking for a permanent solution to a temporary problem, and my life was coming apart so much that I think desperation was the mother of inspiration. I was looking around, and I remember being pretty much on the floor of the kitchen. My marriage was done. My business was going down the drain. I lost all the money, and I could just see it all slipping away. And I felt like I was losing my life. And I remember reaching out to you and then being rewarded in the sense that there was somebody to talk to. And you were actually the first guy that I could talk to that I felt like I could listen to you. I could open up, but I could talk to you. And then that trust was built. And I got some great counsel from you. You helped me get through the most difficult time of my life. And then that actually opened me up to Scott Duffy, as you gave a speech around that same time. I just showed you that picture. Right around that same time, he gave a speech. I never would have done this before, but he gave a speech at an event I was at. And I was the guy that just slipped out the back after an event. But after he talked, everybody kind of walked away, and I made a beeline over to him. And I just knew I needed to talk to him and say, that hit, here's where I am. And he was like, well, fuck, call me. If there's anything I could do, call me or text me. Here's my phone number. And I think for me, it was like I was rewarded a couple of times. And then even a third time, it was 4th of July. A friend of mine was having a 4th of July party, and I got a WhatsApp message from all these guys in my business group. And you're talking about everybody you're in the room where you're more successful. I now was the least successful. They were asking me if I was okay on a WhatsApp channel. And I had a pivotal moment to say, I'm all right. Because they said, hey, Empringham, are you okay? Are you okay? You're not responding to the WhatsApp. And I didn't want to respond to the WhatsApp. I was hungover. I was desperately lonely. I was isolating. It was awful. And I had to make the decision to say, no, I'm not all right. He called immediately, Anthony Drussi called immediately, and he was over to a party that he was hosting. And he got me on the phone, and I started bawling. And he goes, I'll be right over. I was like, no, don't come over. He left the party. He came over.
Wow.
He knocked on the door. And he reminded me of all the things I had. And we went through the asset kind of column. And that made a big difference. So I think it started with desperation, was a mother of inspiration. It wasn't like some great insight. It was like I needed a lifeline, and I found you. And I was lucky to do that. And that kind of led me to having the courage to reach out to people I connected with in different ways and say, I want to learn from you.
You know, it's so hard because I think we're all entrepreneurs. And as entrepreneurs, we're always trying to put on a brave face. You know, some things you can't talk to your investors about, you can't talk to your team about. So whenever somebody asks how you doing, like the automatic answer from an entrepreneur is usually things are great.
Right.
They're awesome. They're awesome. You know, it's kind of
checking your bank account.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you're afraid to open the banking app, right? You don't want to see it. And so what I found is, you know, in my experience, so I made the mistake of not talking to anybody, you know, going and hiding when things, you know, weren't working out. You know, similar to Scott, you know, I had a loss. I lost a business that was really public. I went in 9 months, what became almost $1 million upside down, led to divorce, like all that kind of stuff. And I ended up, we're in Orange County. I ended up in Costa Mesa. I was across the street from a golf course. It was a private golf course. And I was crying so hard in my car, I just like pulled over and I pulled the seat back so nobody would see me. And all those crazy thoughts go through your mind. And what I did is I called someone named Dave Meltzer, and I called Dave and I said, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't hide anymore. I don't know who to call, but I know you've been through a horrible situation. What I found is when people have been through hard, guys have been through hard, they want to jump in and help guys going through hard. It's just getting to the point of asking. And what Dave said to me is he said, I'm going to help you. He said, starting today, he said, this is what you're going to do. He said, the first thing is you're going to take accountability for all of it. He said, it was no longer the market. It was you. You weren't prepared. You weren't ready, whatever it was. He said, the second thing you're going to do is you're going to forgive yourself for everything. And I got to be like, that was the hardest part for me. He said, the third thing you're going to do is you're going to find the lesson in it. And the fourth thing is you're going to be grateful for it. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So anyway, he said to me on that call, he said, every day for the next year, you're going to call me every single day. And we're just going to check in. He said, it might be a minute. It might be, you're going to call me every day. And on the days I didn't call because I felt so bad about myself and so ashamed of what was going on, he would call me and he would like be upset with me. For 1 year, Dave Meltzer did that. And my point is not just to like thank Dave and to share, you know, because Scott, you were open. It's like, how do we get guys to be able to not have to get to that point and ask sooner for help? Do they have to be part of communities, groups? Like, do they have to be in church? Like, how do we do that?
You mentioned it earlier, which I thought was such a great statement, which is like, where is the space that a man can just be a man? And I think like what we're trying to do is everything becomes so programmed and so sterilized that it becomes less effective, works against itself. Or like, I mean, I essentially got removed from a lot of like sort of the Christian circles because it was like, you're cussing, you have cigars and you have bourbon. So now you're out. And I was like, I'm actually okay with being out because I think that's not where I want to be in because I'm not alone. And I'm like, I wonder if there's other like Island of Misfit toys like out here going, I radically love Jesus. There's not a question about it. But I sit in the back row and don't feel like I fit in. But I absolutely want to figure out where my tribe is. And I'm like, what I've experienced is, and I'm not saying everybody should drink and have cigars and whatever. I'm mostly just saying like, there used to be this place where men could be men and could gather. And when they gathered, the honesty flowed naturally because we weren't judging them. I think in Christian circles, we've so predetermined the judgment that there is no space for vulnerability. Forget being an entrepreneur. If you're a Christian, damn, you better have all your ducks in a row. If not, you're just showing up to the accountability group for, 6 months confessing the same porn addiction. And now it's not an accountability group. It's just an enabling group, we're all just going to confess so we feel a little bit better, but we're not going to really make any changes because we're not going to be honest about what's leading to the porn. So it's like, I think that that what you said earlier, that just that space of where can men be men tribally, like where does that happen naturally in your world? Like you said, you reached out and it's like, oh, okay, I don't think any of us, wherever I would probably say, dare to guess from all of us, the places we forced it are the places that blew up, and the places where the river kind of runs to the lowest place where we kind of just fell into it. Those are the spaces where we found the most honesty, the most vulnerability, and probably the most transformation in our lives, because we were really just able to be us, you know?
And that's why, in a lot of ways, I think we're all a bit of pioneers right now, because we're creating, or we're doing our best using our God-given talents to create some kind of, just even having this conversation right now. Like, did your dad ever have a conversation like this? I mean, you know what I mean? Like mine didn't, you know? And so I want to just, you know, praise you guys, affirm you guys that we're kind of charting a new path, because we're normalizing an idea that guys can be a certain way, that I think in a prior generation and in prior many generations, there wasn't the atmosphere available to people.
And they can talk to other people.
They can guys. The other common denominator, it's not lost on me either, is that all 5 of us have touched the dark side.
Okay, somebody said that earlier. I forget who just said that right now, but I think that's a big. I think that until something crumbles.
You were asking, do people need to touch the dark side?
That was it. I think so. I really do. I think we're too stupid to believe it's ever going to happen to us until it does. Like, dude, you could look somebody in the face. Well, I lost a business. I lost everything. You could look some guy in the face that is riding high, and you are seeing every sign of absolute implosion and explosion. It's coming. Guaranteed. You look him in the face and you're like, dude, it's coming. Careful here. Nah, no, dude, I'm not going to make the same mistakes you. Come on, man. Come on. Boom. So I feel like,
when we first went through our marriage stuff, my wife and I'm like leading worship in stadiums and arenas and all this stuff. And we're traveling, and it's all looks super sexy on paper. And then our marriage stuff like implodes, and we do the work, we're doing repair. We're kind of in the middle of it, but we're kind of screwed because this is how we make money. So now all of a sudden you're like in this catch-22, and we're like, well, okay, we know everything sucks right now. We're just going to put everybody in the van and we're going wherever we're going to go. We're going to do it at least together. Like, let's just at least start there. Not saying it's healthy, not saying it's the right move, but at least we got to start
something different. Yeah.
But what happened, to your point, is we would show up to these green rooms, and the people, you know, you're like the pastors, are like, oh man, we're so glad and you brought your family. We're so glad you guys are here. How's it going? And we're like, oh dude, this whole thing's going to shit. I think we're going to divorce. I don't know if we're getting divorced, but I mean, we're working on it.
We didn't even talk to each other on the drive.
And every time, without fail, every time, they're like, first awkward. Like, you're like, oh, they're like, you're going to you're like speaking in like 10 minutes. Like, I just thought we were going to get like the normal answer.
Don't tell me the truth.
And the crazy part is that every single time, which this is what started what we were doing today, every single time they were like, yeah, that's crazy. Hey, can we talk to you afterwards?
Yeah.
Because every one of them, all behind the scenes, knew the explosion was coming, knew that something was off, but had no one to talk to because no one showed up and was like, yeah, man, this is fucking crazy. Like, this whole thing's falling apart. Anybody else? Okay.
Yeah.
And it's like, that was where we kind of started to see that people started to open up, where it's like, yeah, like, I've been in your shoes. Like, we've been there. It hurts. It's broken. And we got a daughter with cerebral palsy. So it's like, hey, like, you know, we were in charismatic circles, and it's like, I've got the biggest obvious sign I wear everywhere we go. They're like, hey dog, what you're preaching doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and if you're going to ignore that, then you're going to try to ignore my daughter, you know? So it's like engaging with the story that's right in front of us in complete vulnerability opens people up to like, hey, I know I'm headed towards the explosion. I just want to talk to somebody about it who's not going to judge me when I say, I think this thing's about to explode.
See that? Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, so we've talked about talking to guys about this before the explosion. How do you tell, or how do you talk to your wife, your significant other? How do you talk to that person before the explosion or during the explosion? I know it's a whole different thing, but.
Well, I think she sees it coming a lot sooner than we see it coming.
Interesting. like people in the company that are the leaders are usually the last person to see a change happening.
Well, I think there's a gender difference too, that men are particularly prideful and are very defensive and resistant to an idea that like, hey, your life's about to fall apart. And our wives are like, I see it.
Yeah.
There's a reason wisdom is always mentioned as a she instead. It's only female. Wisdom is only female in the Bible.
So the thing too is that like we have, so I always think about it like on a scale of like 1 to 10. Okay. So 10 is like life is really great. And 1 is like, I'm thinking about killing myself. And most guys reach out and are serious for help in the like 1 to 2 category. Because of our human nature and our fallen nature and our sinful nature, we're never going to be interested when we're in the 10 category. No. I just don't think that's humanly possible. So it's like, how do we talk to guys at like the 5 and 6 range? You don't have to wait till you're totally desperate in the gutter. I think we could avoid that. We're never going to reach it at 10. 5 and 6 is a great thing. And if there was more spaces like this space that we have right now doing this podcast, where some guy just came in here, he's like, hey, I'm kind of a 5 and a 6. Well, he would admit that he's a 5 and a 6 as he hears all of our stories at 1 and 2. He's gonna be like, oh my God, these guys are talking about their 1s and 2s. I'll tell my story about the 5 and the 6. Okay. But that the 5 and 6 guy never talks about the 5 and 6 because he doesn't ever experience a conversation or a safety net with other men talking about the 1s and 2s.
Well, and I think too is we will always talk about the valley of the shadow of death when we're on the mountaintop.
But you love talking about this. Yes. You talk about this a lot.
I freaking hate that so much. I don't need to hear some dipshit tell me that he lost everything and now he's worth $57 billion. And so if I just do what he did, then I'm going to experience the same thing. That doesn't, cool. Good for you.
It lacks vulnerability.
I don't relate. I don't relate. I want to hear, this can be overdone too, but I just don't see many successful men being honest about the highs and lows of every day. So here's an example that has nothing to do with suffering, but I think it's so perfect. So Scotty Scheffler, multiple times last year, when he was not playing well day 1 or day 2 of a tournament, he would get back onto the driving range or back onto the putting green after he was done playing his round, and he would go practice. The #1 golfer in the world at the peak of his golfing, having what he felt like was an off day, still crush almost everybody. He's in 3rd, right? Or something like that. And he would go put in work again. That to me shows that if the best guy in the world is going to continue to work on himself when we perceive him to be at the top of his game, that's him showing vulnerability to me. He's not saying I suck. He's saying something was off today. Yeah. I need to go tweak something. It's the 1% better. It's like, dude, if you're a 5, I don't want to make you a 10. I want to make you a 6. And then the 6 will become a 7. And so I think that we need to see more examples of people that are hitting it hard, doing well, but also experiencing hurt, heartache, tragedy, frustration, struggle.
But I think it's the illusion of arrival.
Yes.
As Christian men, we promote this probably more than anyone. Like, especially our salvation message. It's come up, pray the prayer, you're in. It's like, okay. I mean, I feel like a false gospel is come and live so that you never have to die. That's the false gospel. The true gospel is come and die so that you can truly live. And so for us, there's this of you're going to arrive one day and be a great husband. You're going to arrive one day and be a great father. You're going to arrive one day and be a really great man. You're going to arrive one day and be that CEO. You're going to arrive. And if we can let that die, like, I'm never going to arrive. It doesn't mean I won't grow, but when are we ever going to sit down and be like, well, man, I'm just really glad that I'm a perfect Christian. It really worked out for me. You know, hey, I'm now a perfect father. Congratulations. I would please write the book. I'll buy it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a perfect version. I arrive. It's like, there is no arriving in this thing. We are going to continue to develop and grow and change and shift. And if we can admit what part of changing and shifting and transformation we're in, then it always keeps us humble, keeps us vulnerable, and keeps us, which is, I think is what you're saying, is accessible. Like we can continue to be accessible to our wives, to the people we're leading, to our friends, to our family. Like, we're just not available because we're still thinking that we arrived somewhere when really we need a ton more work. And so I'm like, I guess I always walk around going, listen, man, I know how fucked up I am. And this is my full-time job, dude. like literally, this is the way I look at it. I'm like, if this is hard for me, and it is my full-time job, reading every book, sitting in a circle like this, which most men will never get in their entire lives. This is my job. And it's hard for me. Dude, I got to have way more empathy. I have to have way more compassion because I know how hard it is for me and how close I am to screwing this thing up every day, that I have to stay accessible to the people who are like trying to do this in 4 hours a week on top of their 60-hour week job, 80-hour week job, kids that are just in total rebellion and a marriage that's failing.
It's a good reminder because I think it's easy to forget what the 1 and 2 felt like once we get some distance from it. We're kind of like, well, I'm not there anymore. Like, I'm doing pretty good. Like, what's your problem? It's like, well, dude, you remember where you were at, when everything was falling apart? Yeah. It's like the prayer is, God, please keep that close to my heart. Yep. Keep that. Don't ever let me forget what that felt like.
And have that empathy.
I posted this on Instagram pretty recently. Speaking of vulnerability in real time. So my coach asked me to ask my wife how she would rate me in these different categories. Yeah.
How'd that work out?
Well, and it was like, 7 categories or whatever. And like, 5 or 6 of the categories, she gave me like, 8s, let's say. And I was like, dude, that's great. But in the romance category, she gave me a 4. And so I was like, what the fuck, dude?
What's wrong with you?
So I went to her, I was like, what's with the 4? And she's like, you're not a romantic person. She's like, I was like, okay. So we got into this conversation, like, what is romance? And like, it was awesome thing. But I wanted to post that on my Instagram because I'm like, dude, same thing. I'm the black belt husband guy. This guy's full of shit. It's like, yeah, well, I don't want to be full of shit. I just want to tell you that we're all on the journey together. I don't have it figured out, and it's like, there's an evolution, and it goes to your point. Pastors are so bad at this, and it drives me fucking bananas, especially when I was a new Christian and I was in the 1 and 2 space of my life. And I wanted someone to role model for me that they were also suffering, that they were struggling. Yeah. And the best I could get from any pastor at any church was like, yeah, I'm really, working on my sin of, sometimes I have a temper. I'm like, you motherfucking liar. I know you're doing more shit than that, right? But you're never going to say that you're never going to say that from the pulpit, right? Because it's about this perception. And I understand it. They have to do it. And so I'm not trying to judge that, but I think it leaves people kind of hopeless, because if we're sitting and listening to that and we're feeling like, wow, like I just met with the prostitute last night and this guy's worst sin is he kind of has a temper and he gets into road rage sometime. Like, what kind of piece of shit am I? Right. So I'm so, you got to keep pounding that drum.
Scott, you were saying earlier, like, how do we bring our wives into this a little bit more? So you just hit on something. So same thing, about a month ago, I'm in my mastermind. Like, all right, you're up. We want you to go to ask your wife, scale of 1 to 10. Now, actually just 1 to 10. How are you doing right now? And she rated me a 9. I'm like, yeah. But I responded back to her and I said, okay, how could I make that a 10? And then she told me. I was so pissed off and I was so, so anyway, so fast forward. So all the way through to just this last weekend. So we have our most constructive conversations when we go out on date nights. We go out on a date typically twice a month. So we go to a nice dinner and that's where we talk about the hard stuff. And people are like, why are you going to ruin your good night? And I'm like, that's the perfect time to do it. So of course, right before we go out on our date, and this will connect to like the 9 thing. Anyway, my oldest daughter, she gets like ranting and talking about all these things. She was like kind of talking trash on some friends, rightfully so, but still I was just over it. And so I tell my wife, I'm like, we got to go. Let's go early. I got to get out of here because my daughter was just going at it. And as we're walking out of the house, my wife says to me, you're turning into your dad. I just don't want you to turn into your dad. And she knows that that's one thing that really drives me nuts, because as much as I love my dad, he is awful about like just checking out on things that he doesn't want to be a part of. And it wasn't that. It was just like she was ranting and I didn't want to hear it. So we get to dinner in silence. We sit down, we order in silence. And I'm waiting for her to say something. I'm like, I'm not breaking this. And so finally she goes, I feel like
there's a battle happening.
Yeah. But she says, I feel like ever since, I said that to you, that you've been different with me. And I could have glazed it over just to made a good dinner out of it. I said, you know what? Yeah, I said that really pissed me off. And she goes, well, why? And so I laid it out for her. I said, I'm always open to you being honest with me. We've set this tone about where I come up short, what I do. I said, but in this moment, I said, you went way too far. I said, you accused me of doing something that had nothing. I said, I show up, I listen, I'm caring for, I'm providing for all this stuff. I said, I always give you room to speak into my life and tell me the things I'm doing wrong. I said, but in this instance, you were absolutely wrong. And I said, and I don't appreciate it at all. And it was awesome. She was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I'm so sorry. And so for that, it was this great just moment for us where, because I had built up all of this capital with her to take the negative feedback, the little, the big, the whatever, that way, when she pushed on something that wasn't true, she was willing to take my feedback, even off of her feedback, and be like, you know what, you were right. And it wasn't even like I was right moment. What it was for me was a huge victory of, we got to the same page, vulnerably, honestly.
That's that healthy masculine energy.
Yes, that was it. And it was like, I'm not going to take you, I'm not going to lay down when you tell me that because I'm worried about ruining a date night. I'm not like, there are other things I will take, and I know where I'm wrong. But if we don't keep this dialogue going and be honest, then you're going to tell me something. I'm just going to box it up. I'm going to be pissed at you for 3 weeks, and then we're going to build on the next thing. So I think that's one thing that I don't see guys doing very well is, go ahead.
Did that change your score to a 10?
No, I don't want it. No, I do, damn it. But that's a thing for me. I learned the hard way, because I got to a place where I almost cheated on my wife 5.5 years into our marriage. I had an opportunity to sleep with another woman. By God's grace, did not. We didn't know the Lord then. That drove us into church 4 days later. We came to faith and started rebuilding our marriage. And she was my best friend when we got married. But we didn't really know how to communicate. And I'm a hard runner. I'm a big aspirational goal guy. She's different. She doesn't have that personality. And so I was leaving her behind all the time. And so now, 24.5 years into our marriage, we are having these open conversations. And she feels like she's not running behind trying to hold on to me. She's in it the whole way, in the highs and the lows. And so I tell her when I've had a miserable day. I tell her when I've had a big win. Like, she's the first person to celebrate with me, but she's also the first person to tell me to quit bitching. Like, when I got crushed during the pandemic, and I lost almost 20 grand a month in one day due to our awesome governor closing the state down. And I went home crying. And she looked me in the face. She said, I'm going to let you cry tonight. She says, you're going to get up tomorrow morning. You're going to go figure it out. And so that has been like just the nature of our relationship, is that open line of communication and honesty at all times. And I feel like that is what is allowing me to be better as a husband, to be better as a father, but even just to be better as a leader in the community.
I love the way your wife said that on that tough day.
Yeah. Oh,
I think as entrepreneurs, we tend to think that we're the most important people in our companies, but I think the most important person in our company is really the person we come home to.
Oh.
And they honestly have the worst job in the company. So like, we're the CEO. I say they're the CVO. They're the chief venting officer. And they get all of it. And so it's almost like if they were in the same way we're trying to get better, if they were learned how to be better in that role, so they either don't feel like they're taking everything on. Because like what tends to happen with entrepreneurs is it's 11 o'clock at night and we can't sleep, right? And that's when we're like, hey, let me tell you what happened today. We feel great because we vented, and we feel great because we vented, and then they're up all night, right? So it's almost like, how could they be educated in a way that would teach them how to either not take all of it on or steer you the way she did, like have enough empathy, but also just like, because you're a badass, so like you're gonna figure it out, you know?
I think there's two, like when we talk about like a group of men, there is some space of like, I can let a lot of energy go in a group of men.
Yeah.
So that way, I mean, my wife and I talk about it a bunch. When you like, there used to be like, before you'd come home, you go to the bar or you go to the lodge, and then you come home. You know, I'm not saying all those things are.
There's wisdom in that.
But what I'm saying is there was this healthy masculine environment for me to be like a man, drop off all this energy, and I'm not venting when I get home because I dropped it off with all these dudes. But like, yeah, screw this has happened, this fell apart, and everybody's like, yeah, it sucks for you. Like, it's this thing where you're like, oh, I'm able to like get it out a little bit.
Jiu-jitsu is that for me.
Exactly. Yes. And that's like, and it's like being able to do that, and then going into the home and being like, okay, cool. I've actually decompressed a little bit.
Mhm.
And there was this buffer zone that we just don't have for men. Because
Yeah.
I think you mentioned it earlier, where the expectations of do everything, be everything. My wife is like the most anti-feminist human on earth. It's wild to watch. She just offends women all the time because she's like, no, like there's no reason that a man has to do all those things. That doesn't make any sense. What, like there's a reason that we both have our domains. And when I'm able to be a man, she's able to be a woman, you know? And I think sometimes we're trying to drag her into our world. And then because of culture, women are trying to drag us into theirs. Yeah. And there really needs to be this beautiful separation so that they can speak with real honesty and authority. But we also don't need them to approve of everything we do or give us an answer because we've already vented to the guys in our life.
Exactly. And you said something about like relational capital. The way I kind of say it in my world is relational leverage. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Basically, like a lot of guys, well, most guys really struggle with setting boundaries with their wife. So they kind of fall into that kind of people pleasing, kind of like nice guy kind of role, and they let their wife kind of walk all over them. And then the wife doesn't respect him. It resents the wife. It's like just a whole. And when guys learn about like, hey, it's okay to push back. It's okay I'm going to put my wife in her rightful place. Okay. I say that like without any hesitation. That's how I kind of think about it. She's a sinful human. She's going to do things that are not okay. She's going to cross the line, and it's my responsibility to myself and to our marriage to say, don't fucking do that. But the only way I can ever do that and actually have it work is if I have invested so much relational capital into our relationship where she's going to be like, okay, I heard you.
Yeah.
See, a lot of guys don't have that investment. So they go to do the thing and they're like, go fuck yourself. It's like, I always use the analogy. It's like being like an owner of a company. Yeah. And you're just been a shitty boss, right? You don't really care about your employees. You know, you're not really taking an interest in them. And then one day you go, you know what? You know, I want you to be here at 8 a.m. instead of 9. They're kind of like, well, I don't know if that really works for me. Yeah. It's like, what are you going to do? Fire me? I don't really care. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so it's kind of the same principle that it's like, how do we create that leverage? What do we do because this is all part of the problem too. Like in our modern culture, we're talking about like the plight of the modern man. And at least in the world that I'm in, it's not that men are too aggressive. It's the opposite. It's that men have become way too passive, and that's destroying their marriage.
But that's just a pendulum swing, right?
The pendulum swing, right? So how do we bring men back to that healthy place in the middle? Yep. What do you think about that, Ryan? I
mean, first of all, conversations like this being out in the culture need to be happening on a more regular basis, because this is not what we're hearing. This is not what the mainline podcast is talking about. And this is not what the big influencers are regularly talking about. So that's a problem. So we need to find ways to penetrate the culture with that. I think Let
me ask you a question about that. Do you think people aren't talking about it because it's just not interesting?
I think it's twofold. I think that
people don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah. I think that people are scared. A lot of men are scared to step up and say the real thing. Like right now, so there's a pastor out in Texas. His name is Josh Howerton, and he is one of the very, very few. He's now pastors a church of 30,000 called Lake Point, and he has come under fire because in a very biblical way, he's just speaking out against all the trash. And he is being railed. But because he took so long until he had a nice large following, a big church, it's being combated. But he's like one of very few. In the Christian world, you don't see. I don't know of another man right now, except maybe, and this is a questionable figure, but Mark Driscoll is somebody that people are following. I do not respect Mark Driscoll. I am a personal, I have personal issue with and took a lot of shrapnel from his ministry. I don't think he should be in a pastoral role right now. And so I don't think he's actually a healthy guy to listen to, even though 98% of what he's saying right now is pretty good. I think he's serving in a role unbiblically. My opinion aside, even though I think it's right, we just don't see that.
You, Mark.
So because we don't have that in the Christian world, then what we have is other guys that are super smart. Like, dude, I respect the shit out of Joe Rogan, and he's on the journey, and I pray to God he finds Jesus in the most real way sooner than later. But he does not have the Spirit of God living inside of him, so his view is going to be tainted. We had Jordan Peterson for a while until he got really sick. He's on that journey too, but I don't think he truly has the Spirit of God working inside of him. So we just don't have that voice because men are afraid. As soon as you start to get a little bit of a platform, the last thing you want to do is blow it up by talking about what bitches men are being right now and how woke is so bullshit. Like, you just don't want to do that because, like, I've lost tens of thousands of dollars of business this year alone just by being public about my faith and my conservative values. So I think that's a big problem that we see right now.
And you ran for city council.
And I ran for school board,
yeah.
just in my local community and got railed by the California Teachers Union.
Good.
Just because I was a Christian conservative. I was a white Christian nationalist. People like made pictures of me and put up Nazi signs and Proud Boy logos. It was wild, but that's what happens. And so in those moments,
Good for you, man, that's awesome.
but in those moments, you have to ask yourself, like my kids, my youngest daughter is in high school and she still has teachers now that are nasty to her and treat her differently because I ran for school board and I lost, but still. And so it's like, I had to talk with my kids about why we were doing this. This wasn't to build a platform. It wasn't to financially benefit. Like, it hurt us to do that, but it's what was right. And if I was able to positively impact one more person, then it was worth it. And so I think that's a big part of it is like, guys need to quit being pussies about this stuff.
Well, I think most people don't speak out because they're over-informed and under-transformed. So they don't have the life to back up the things they're about to say.
A lot of knowledge. But,
They have, we are,
yeah.
that's why the pastors that get raised up are the ones who are so solid theologically, because we value the theology more than we value the person being transformed. That's why people are falling and people are being exposed all the time right now, you know, because there's so much information, which is easy to access now with AI and everything else. Like, this is you don't even need the degree, right? So we've got all this information, but no transformation. And so I think a lot of these dudes, they don't say what they really need to say, because if someone opens up that back door, they're going to see a ton of stuff that doesn't align with the very things they're saying on their podcast, because they're not going to be vulnerable. They're not going to be honest. They're not going to be those things. So instead we get guys like a Jordan Peterson or whatever, like, that are going to have tons of information, but it's like, really,
Where's the fruit?
that's what, and I think we're missing a ton of men with fruit.
Yeah.
And here's what,
But real quick, because I want you to keep going on this. So don't lose that. I think it's such a slippery slope, though, because I think there are so many guys that are equipped to speak up, but they're afraid to be found out because they're still struggling. So that's the other problem.
And that's my point is I'm going like,
it's like,
but
like
again,
this Scott, like, that would be a perfect example. He's like, well, I heard him say this earlier, so vulnerable, appreciated it. But you're like, I'm 5 years into this. I'm still new to this. You guys are going to have to talk to this. Kind of is what you were alluding to. I don't believe that. I believe that's the enemy lying to you right now to try and get you to shut your mouth so you won't speak up about the experiences of what God is doing. You are probably one of the best people to speak into this culture right now because you are being freshly transformed, all the while still wrestling with what the old was and what the new is. But it's guys like that that are getting their ass kicked because Satan's like, dude, you can.
Right. So then what we get, that's
You're
right.
too new.
So then what we do is we get kids fresh out of ministry school and make them preachers and evangelists.
Oh, God.
And then the whole thing is screwed up because you don't have a guy who's actually experiencing transformation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You have some kid who has a bunch of new information and has no life experience.
Right.
And we're putting them on platforms, empowering them, making them huge social media influencers. When I agree, guys that are in your shoes and in your experience, that's the most impactful, honest, real, raw conversations about what it means to live this out. And to me, I think all this, whatever, I'm like the oddball. I think all of this is going to go away. I think people are going to wait. They're going to look for lives. They're going to look for men who are transformed.
Yeah, they're going to look for fruit.
And you know what it is there's this season of, when they were, burning the libraries and burning the Bibles, and there were these desert fathers and mothers who took the word of God and went into caves. And they went into caves, and if you wanted to get this information, you had to wander into the desert where they were waiting. And I think that there's some sort of tribal, mythological sort of we see it in scripture with John the Baptist. I think we're going to see a lot more John the Baptist is what we're going to see.
Okay.
Where people are wandering out into desert places. And I don't mean that in physical. I mean that like
Yeah.
we're going out to go, people are going to start looking. And I think we've got a younger generation who's already started looking. Where are the dudes who are doing this and are holding on to hidden wisdom that they're not just going to go and blow up on a podcast? They're going to hide it from you because it is the glory of God to hide this stuff from kings, so that a king's glory is to search that stuff out. And I think that is what there's like, we're going to go and see that guy, like go, dang, that guy, wow, his life is wild. And he doesn't have, where is he on social media? I got a buddy, been friends with him for 30 years. Probably one of the most incredible humans on earth. Just exited a massive company, radically loves Jesus. His family's doing, I mean, he's just a badass on every category. He went to go exit the company. And what is one of the first things they do when they go to people are exiting company? Straight to social media. Who is this guy? They honestly didn't believe he existed for about a year because they couldn't find him on social media and there was no information except for his name's on paperwork. And they're like, who the hell is this guy? And finally they show up to the meeting and they're like, you really exist. And he's like, has no presence anywhere else, but tons of fruit from his life. And you know what he hosts at his house? Tons of kids. The youth group goes to his house because he owns this 1,000, complex, whatever in Denver.
Like the body of
real.
Christ, right? Like we all have a different role to play, right? I mean,
and I feel like that is like our role in this. That's why I'm like, I'm not abdicating I'm like, I feel like I flew down here just to be on this, to be honest with you, to hang out with Troy last night. And I'm like, any chance I can be around guys like this, I don't care. I'll fly down. You. It's like that. This means the world to me because I'm like, we have to go, hey, everybody. Hey, we're here, like we got this. We're working on this. We're working on it. Hey.
My wife gave me the best compliment, and I'm sure this story real quick, and then we're going to land the plane. And I have a question I want to ask all of you guys to wrap up. But my wife gave me the best compliment. This is probably like a month ago. She goes, you're a prophet. And I was like, what? And I know my wife, she's very conservative theologically, so she doesn't believe in that kind of prophet as much. But in my mind, I thought, like, I think a prophet as someone that's like predicting the future. I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, if you look at all the Old Testament prophets, basically what they were doing is standing on the mountaintop, warning the people of Israel. Like, look out, you're going to get hit by this. And she's like, I see you on social media. I see you doing that. She's like, I see you. You're a modern day prophet. I was like, never thought about myself as a prophet. And I texted you that same day, that picture of you at the event. I was like, you're a prophet too. And it sounds like maybe all of us have a little bit of that kind of thing going on. And we need that. We need this modern day prophecy. Okay. So let's land the plane.
Can I do something real quick? Sorry. When I said that to you earlier, just a few minutes ago, what were you thinking?
You were bang on. That's what I was thinking.
Keep going.
One, I feel like I've experienced something extraordinary, at least in my life. But I think what my biggest fear is to be a hypocrite, to try to being exposed as a hypocrite, because I still have sinful thoughts. I still have all kinds of sinful behaviors, and I repent every morning. And I try to be a better person. I'm listening to you guys. I'm like, you guys are smart. You guys are way smarter than I am. I'm listening. It's like all this wisdom. Part of it, I feel like I do have something to share, particularly with somebody who's fresh in a transformation. It wasn't that long ago for me. One thought kept coming up is I was at an event fairly recently, just a couple of years ago, where I still had absolutely nothing. I shouldn't have even been at this event. I couldn't afford to be at this event. It was in Cancun with all these enormously successful people. And I felt like a complete fraud. And so I started thinking about what can I do to show up feeling better about myself, feeling better. And it was early bedtimes. I don't drink, so everybody's going out and partying, and I would excuse myself from dinner, and I go to bed. I'd read scripture. I'd get up early. I mean, early, like 3 a.m. I'd work out. I'd wait for the gym to open up at the hotel, work out, read scripture in the morning, read, journal, meditate, be the first one into this event, like at 7:30. And I thought, I don't make the kind of money anybody makes. I don't feel as successful. I still was divorced at the time. But I can show up being the best human being I could possibly be. And that was fucking win. That was a win. And I showed up in my suit. I started wearing a suit at this event because I was broke, but I brought my suit. And so the transformation for me was this real quiet daily thing that nobody knew about, but I did. And I felt great about it.
Okay, you guys, I don't know if you guys all know this, but he divorced his wife and then remarried her 9 years later. 9 years later. Dude, that story is gold, bro. And not like people need to know that happens and that happened to you. I have like a crazy vision for you doubling down and communicating that story. And I know you do actually do a job talking about it, but like to the nth degree, because there's so many people that I've been in a divorce journey with that I'm like, you guys are fucking idiots. You don't need to get a divorce.
Right. Right.
And they can't get out of their own way. And it's like, it doesn't matter coming from dumbass Quentin, but coming from Scott, who's lived this experience of remarrying his wife. I mean, dude, there's so much power.
The wild part is the guy that I was literally talking about. Same thing. They were divorced for almost 2 years and he in pursuit. And so
I just want to encourage you.
it's huge.
Like I could not shake this feeling that I felt before I said that to you, but this whole time it's like, I talk a lot and I'm trying to really work on shutting my mouth more. And clearly, like, we all have a lot to say, and you've been a lot more quiet and timid than the rest of us in this conversation. I pray to God that you would see what God has done in you in a different way.
You have this gift to, I'm sorry to interrupt. You have this gift to articulate your experiences and what you've gotten out of them that is so unique and makes you so powerful. So powerful.
You don't need to self-deprecate anymore, dude. Who cares what you've done? Jesus wiped all that away. And not only that, we no longer live in this identity that we are sinners. We once were, but no longer are. And so I pray to God, like, as we've been talking about what to do in 2026 for you personally, I pray that you would lean into that like never before, that you would see yourself not as, man, I'm going to be found out. You are going to be found out, that you once were and no longer are. And dude, that story can be so powerful. To a guy like me that's been at this now for as long as I need you to speak into my life, to encourage me in all the ways you're going to war every single day. You don't have less to offer, that you have far more to offer, probably somebody like me, than somebody that's ahead of me, because of how fresh that fire is inside of you. So I just want you to know that, man.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Well, it's funny. I feel like I'm learning something from you guys. So my thought is, if I'm learning, keep my mouth closed and listen. So that's where I am.
Part of your gift, I think, is that you don't necessarily, like, to say, every time that you speak, it's well thought and it's really impactful and it's tied to a personal experience. And what's nice about the tied to personal experience is it almost becomes a metaphor. The way that you speak and the way you communicate when you're on stage and everything, is there's something about it that connects metaphorically, and we're like, so you get it, like it hits different, you know? So you've got this like gift of transferring thought through this authenticity that is, I mean, like, you're built for this. Yeah. You built yourself for this. You didn't even know that you were.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. We're cheerleading for you, dude. Okay. There's a 25-year-old young man listening to this podcast. What's the one thing you want to say to him walking away from this conversation? What's the one thing he needs to hear from Scott?
The same advice I take. Build the man, build the rest. For me, build the man, build the business. I always wanted success. I always wanted money. I wanted money because my dad had money and my dad represented success. So there's nothing else I wanted more than money, and money equaled success. If that 25-year-old is similar to me, or I was, and I wanted the success, whatever he sees success as, then he starts with himself. If he starts with himself, then that's a great place to start. And if the second part is, the question is, well, where do I start? I would say with Christ. That decision changes everything. It's a completely different book. It's a completely different guidebook. For me, I was always looking for the roadmap. Tony Robbins, maybe Dale Carnegie, maybe Think and Grow Rich. Maybe I was looking for the blueprint. My father, books, tapes, Dennis Waitley, and it was always under my nose. It just doesn't have as great as social media, you know, but that's the best place for me to start. And that would be my recommendation for him.
Okay. Awesome, dude. I love that.
Don't quit. Just wherever you are, just don't quit. If you can get one foot in front of the other, today, you're just going to be that much further along. And I just echo the same thing. Like, and when you put that foot in front of the other, trust that God will sort the rest of the steps out. Like, don't trust in your ability or your talents or your gifts or your knowledge or your wisdom, or just really trust that when you put one foot in front of the other, he'll mark out the next step and the next step and the next step. Because I feel like, especially the 20-year-olds, like, don't trust what you're being sold on social media. Don't trust what you're being told by the influencers you're listening to, or these guys. Like, trust him and just don't quit.
Awesome.
I say that we all have ups and downs. We all have highs and lows every single day for an entrepreneur, every hour, it feels like. But the one thing that we can control is gratitude. And so I would suggest to set an alarm on your phone or sometime in the morning. Mine's at 7:30, and sometime at night. Mine's at 7:30 p.m. And when that rings, what I would do is I would say 3 things out loud that I'm grateful for, but feel them. Because what happens is gratitude shifts your perspective in any moment from what you don't have to what you have. And if you have kids, I recommend teaching this to them also. So make the alarm on your phone, whatever the favorite song is that they have. When we started, it was Barney. It was like that, I love you, you love me. Whenever they heard that, everyone got together and yelled out 3 things they were grateful for. So make it a habit. And that's where I'd start. Yeah.
Awesome. Mr. Miller, take us home.
They said everything's so good, man. Yeah, I think that. I think about myself at 25, trying to put myself in the place of somebody else, man. I was on the verge of absolute train wreck. And I think what I wanted to be told more than anything was that it was okay. That I was running from so much. I was afraid of so many people and so many things, and trying to mask that with success and bragging and, pursuing other women, even though I was married, like all these things. And it was all because I was afraid to just be myself. And when I finally found Christ at 28, that was what I heard more than anything was, you are who I made you to be. And once you fully become that man, you are going to experience a life like you've never experienced before. That gave me a sense of peace that I wrestle with, but I still have today.
Guys, we did it. Guys, we did it. All of you guys. Dude, this is...
Before we finish, can we get one from you?
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking about myself too when I was 25, and I was suicidal. I was an alcoholic, a drug addict, I had all the addictions, and I felt so lost. I didn't even know. I just felt so lost. And for the person listening to this, if they resonate with being in that place in life, I just want them to know to keep going, and life gets a lot better.
It's good.
Okay. You fucking animals, dude.
We almost didn't get that.
I was trying to be a good host and just give it to you guys. Okay. But you kicked it back to me and I had to take it. Thank you so much.
So good.
Beto, thank you. You animal behind the stage.
Yeah.
Behind the scene. Beto's going to give us access to this whole thing.
Awesome.
Okay. He'll give us